Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Friday, August 8th, 2025, the end of the day, the end of the week, our favorite time with our intelligence community roundtable. My dear friends, Ray McGovern and Larry Johnson, both doing double duty this week. I think we enjoy Fridays more than we do Mondays.
Thank God it's Friday.
Yeah. But that, of course, is just human nature. Welcome here and welcome to the show. So after a general agreement leaked by both the Kremlin and the White House that President Putin and President Trump would meet together, Larry, the White House decides to add a condition to the meeting, and that is that President Zelensky attend. Question: is Donald Trump serious about negotiating a peaceful end to the special military operation in Ukraine?
Well, that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is they asked Trump that directly, and then he said no. So you've had everything from official White House sources who were saying, oh, yeah, you got to meet with Zelensky or it's not going to happen. Then Trump turns around and says, no, that's not necessary. But then, Trump just the day before, the day that they're getting agreement maybe to meet, declares Russia as an enemy or a national security threat. I have never seen a White House this chaotic and this erratic. I mean, I'll let Ray speak to his time. He was involved with meetings between President Reagan and or George H.W. Bush and Gorbachev, or I guess it was Reagan and Gorbachev. And, there was preparation beforehand. There were the Sherpas, the lower level folks who get together and figure out actually, how the sausage is going to be made. And here you're getting, if I'm in the Kremlin, I'm sitting there just, you get a bag of popcorn out and you're just eating it, watching the back and forth, because it's like Trump's playing a tennis match against himself.
All right, but both
sides of the net.
Before I jump to Ray, Larry, and I'm anxious to hear what he has to say, specifically his experience with these summits when he was in the CIA. Do you think that the Trump White House is just dysfunctional, or do you think Trump is not serious about peace? Because if he were serious about peace, why would he sign an executive order, as you just pointed out, in the very week he's trying to put together this meeting, saying Russia is a material national security threat, and his intelligence community is still showing the Ukrainians how to kill Russians?
Well, I'll just quote the Deputy Foreign Minister Ripkoff. And according to him, he says, look, we hear the talk, but we've not seen a single action on the part of the Trump administration to show that they're actually serious like this in terms of, allowing us to reopen consulates, giving back the property, lifting travel restrictions so you can fly direct from the United States to Moscow and Moscow to the United States. He said, we hear the talk, but we're not seeing any action. So that's, I think it's a combination of dysfunction and that there's really the deep state still calling the shots, not Trump.
Ray, tell me about the Russian mentality and the Kremlin mentality. How do they react when they see this dysfunction, when they see adding another condition that the Americans ought to know the Russians would object to? It would be a line they won't cross, President Zelensky there. What does the Kremlin think of all this?
Well, Judge, you're misinformed. The Russians pointed out from the outset in their readout that the business of meeting with Zelensky was mentioned, but it was not even discussed. And that the Western press is going crazy with this is something that we're finding it hard to understand. That's Ushakov, the official readout. Now, you may recall that Trump himself was very, very circumspect. He said, yeah, there'll be a summit with Putin. But we're hoping we have some prospect that maybe then after that, when the three of us can meet, well, it was never even claimed by Trump. So let's be careful about what we accuse Trump of. He never really said that, yeah, I agreed, or Witkoff agreed with Putin that there would be three-way summit after R2. Now, what I want to put out here is something really important that you can't understand with all this toing and froing and all this mercurial behavior by Trump unless you put the context around it. Now, for the 18th time, I'm going to say, this time it's not McGovern, this time it's Ushakov, okay? And it's in his first paragraph of the readout of the meeting between Witkoff and Putin. The fifth one, by the way. That means Putin trusts Witkoff to speak for the president. Now that Witkoff is 10 times brighter than Rubio or Hegseth, or, I mean, that's condemning with faint praise. But here's what the official readout, first paragraph, here is Ushakov, who is the readout guy, okay? Quote, these were really good, productive sessions. Once again, it was noted that Russia-US relations could be placed on a totally different, mutually beneficial footing in stark contrast to relations in the recent years. Now, that's the backdrop for all this, okay? Putin wants a decent relationship with Trump. Does he trust Trump? Doesn't matter whether he trusts Trump. He's got to deal with Trump for the next 3 years. And the reason he was able to sort of bail Trump out, I mean, today's the day, right? Today's the deadline. My God, if the Russians don't stop in Ukraine, sanctions, secondary sanctions. Well, today, what's happened? Well, not much. The Indians have been sanctioned up the kazoo, but not much else. So Witkoff was sent to Moscow. Look, my president has painted himself into a corner. We need a summit. Can you give us a summit? I mean, that's all we asked for. That will divert attention from everything else, and we wouldn't have to do all these sanctions and all these secondaries. So would you please? It took them 3 hours to persuade Putin, and Putin said, "Oh, all right. The rest is in the woodwork. There's going to be a summit probably next week." And what happens then is the next step. It all depends on whether Trump is feeling that he can countermand Lindsey Graham and the rest of them and do something sensible on Ukraine, which I believe Trump very much wants to do. In other words, he does want peace in Ukraine. Every time he speaks about this, he says, this is Biden's war. And actually, Putin this week said, "Это война Байдена," okay? Война и мир, war and peace. Well, the peace, it is the war Biden of Biden. And then, of course, Trump always said, and I want the blood to stop. This is a little cynical given what he's doing in Gaza, right, but I want the stuff. So Trump is out of there. Trump doesn't have any more arms, neither do the Europeans. The Russians are inexorably on the march. Putin doesn't need any of this, but he wants to see what he can get for Trump in the form of a negotiated win-win thing that is really a pig of defeat for NATO and the US and Ukraine with lipstick on it, painted or allowed to be painted on by Putin.
All right, Larry, 2 points, one of which you and I have already made, but I want you to expand on it. What is to be gained by Trump signing an executive order declaring Russia a material danger to the national security of the United States? Second point, when in reality, the United States is a material danger to Russia. Exhibit 1, General Donahue. Yeah.
Well, and the fact that Trump allowed the redeployment for the first time since 2008 of the B-61-12 nuclear gravity bombs. Now, they're not really a first strike capability, but again, it sends a signal. The reason to declare Russia a national security threat, again, this is it's a ploy. Trump, what Trump is really trying to do, and I get his advisors, they're going after BRICS, and they need to have a national security threat in order to justify levying tariffs on India. But again, these people are stupid. They are absolutely stupid. Look at the level of trade between India and the United States. U.S. trade with India accounts for 2% of India's GDP. That's nothing. And on top of it, the other estimates that had already been calculated in terms of the effect on the annual gross domestic product for India, less than 0.19%. So it's nothing. And yet, what Trump accomplished in this, and maybe I say it tongue in cheek, it was really his secret plan to get the Nobel Peace Prize, because in doing this, he angered the Indians so much that they're now meeting with the Chinese, and the Chinese and Indians are working together to figure out how to stop the United States. So he has effectively stopped the conflict between India and China, ergo qualifying for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Or nominated by Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah. Now, on top of it, as soon as they announced those tariffs, India canceled a purchase of F-35 jets. They canceled some other patrol planes that had been on the list. Their defense minister canceled his visit to Washington, D.C. And India, joining with Brazil and China, Russia, and South Africa, are now going to have an emergency meeting on BRICS to figure out how do we work closer together. And the problem with this for the United States, I don't mean to get off on the economic tangent, but there are so many dollars out there in the market, but the demand for them is shrinking because the BRICS countries, instead of trading, say, hey, I'll sell you oil, or I'll sell you some shoes or some clothes, and then I'll pay for you in dollars, they're paying for it in their own currencies, which means the demand for dollars is going down while the supply is going up, which means the price of that dollar is going to keep coming down. And that then while it helps U.S. exports, we don't have a lot of stuff that we're exporting per se. And so it creates a real bind, because then we're having to pay more dollars to buy back the debt that we have overseas. So all of this is intertwined. I think the Ukraine thing is actually a bit of a sideshow.
Ray, you mentioned a few minutes ago, and I was going to raise this anyway, the shortage of stockpiling of American military equipment. Colonel McGregor has said it's dangerously low, and he points to some study that was made shortly after we wasted $500 million trying to stop the Houthis. Do you know how dangerous it is? Is there a way to quantify this?
There is, but Colonel McGregor would be your expert on that, not me. I'd like to get it back to the Russian Washington calculus here.
Go ahead.
It doesn't matter what national security statements say, okay? These things are boilerplate. The fact that the Daily Telegraph in London is playing this big, Trump is really still saying that Russia is the major, it matters what they do, okay? And I just remind you that the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Duma said just 3 days ago, look, be calm, be patient and composed, resist emotional responses. In contrast, let's dismiss the loud statements, the deadlines and solving things and sanctions. Let's see what Witkoff has to say. Well, Witkoff has said his say, and the Russians have generously said, okay, this guy's in a bind. Trump has painted himself into a corner. He's gonna, tomorrow's the deadline, or Friday's today, okay? So what we can do, all he wants is a summit. We'll give him a summit. We're not going to talk to Zelensky, for God's sake. And if he claims that was part of the bargain, well, we're going to say that right up front, and Ushakov did. The main thing is that Putin wants to develop an agreeable, a decent relationship with the U.S. I've said that several times. Right. Whether Trump wants to or not, I think he does, but the proof is in the pudding. That will come out when the two of them meet, hopefully this week, because a lot is hanging on this, and Putin is serious. Whether Trump can make his will done here by his satraps like Rubio and Kellogg and those people, that remains to be seen. And Putin doesn't know the answer to that either.
All right. Before we jump to Netanyahu and Gaza, does Putin meet with Trump, Ray McGovern, if Zelensky's there? I think the answer is no.
Well, it's obvious it's no. The Russians have already said it's no. They said it in their first readout, okay? What they said again is that the issue of meeting with Zelensky was mentioned, but it was not discussed. And we can't really understand why the Western press is going crazy with this. And then Putin himself said, it's going to be a long time before I'll meet with Zelensky. And he said that yesterday morning. So it's a canard to be diverted by this claim, this not real claim, but the hope that Trump expressed that, well, maybe Zelensky could meet too. Don't be deceived by that. Put your focus on what happens when Putin and Trump finally get together. Putin has the stronger hand. Trump needs a way out. He painted himself into this corner. I think that progress can be made, but you have to factor in the Lindsey Grahams and all the deadheads like Rubio into the equation. God knows, and not even Putin knows what's going to come out of this.
How dangerous is it for Netanyahu to invade and occupy Gaza?
This is like Bill Murray's movie Groundhog Day, where you wake up every morning and it's always Groundhog's Day, and you go through it and relive what you did the previous day, only maybe with a different twist. Israel's been there, done that. They got the T-shirt, and they found out that it was too costly to stay. And now, if Netanyahu does it, he's doing it at a time when the Israeli political fabric is as fragile as it has ever been. He's doing it over the objections of the military commander, the senior military commander.
His appointee.
Yeah.
Right.
But I give the general credit that he's at least trying to give some honest analysis, because he's noting one of the problems Israel still is faced with is the majority of its army are reservists, and these reservists are very poorly trained, almost to the point of being marginally competent, and to then increase the strain, because to occupy Gaza means you're going to have more troop presence than they do currently. And it's going to mean there are going to be more opportunities for Hamas to carry out guerrilla attacks on them, and the Israeli casualties are going to soar. All of this at the time when Israel's trying to maintain a presence in the West Bank, in southern Lebanon, and in Syria. So the army is stretched very, very thin, and this is an expanded mission, not a reduced mission, and this is a labor-intensive mission. So, just watching Netanyahu commit suicide for his country.
Does Hamas have the ability seriously to challenge the IDF, Larry?
Yeah, they do. I mean, look, they've been fighting. We're going on 22 months now. So the Israelis, with every military advantage a modern army could have, having tanks, armored personnel carriers, they've got heavy machine guns. They've got overhead aircraft support, both fixed wing, rotary wing. They've got missiles. They've got bombs. They have a vast array of intelligence collection. With all of that, they haven't been able to defeat a group of fighters who are armed with basically sidearms and rifles, with some RPGs and a few mortars. And Hamas has fought Israel to a standstill after 22 months. So, yeah, if Israel decides to go in this way, I think it's just going to be more targets, and Hamas, the casualty rate is going to go up significantly on the part of Israel.
Ray, who's responsible for the starvation?
Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Now, I think we need to get back to reality here. Netanyahu couldn't do any of these things without the full force, the full-fledged support of Biden and Trump. Now, people ask me, how can any U.S. president condone forced starvation, genocide? And I tell them, well, there's this relationship, this noxious relationship with Israel, but I think there's something more. And now I have some sort of corroboration on that. My experts that tell me about Israel tell me, yeah, there's a better than even chance that Netanyahu has blackmail on Trump stemming from Epstein, okay? Now, I think I may have mentioned this before, but an Israeli Mossad person, now retired, Ben Menashe, gave an interview to Afshin Ratanzi, on going underground about a week ago now, and he appeals to the president, please just release those files from Epstein, for God's sake. It won't be good for you, but you may save 100,000 Palestinians, for God's sake. He's almost in tears. This guy has a conscience. He also has a good record of reporting. Witness the fact that he really helped my mentor, Robert Parry, when Robert Parry is working on and writing about the October surprise way back when. So Ben Menashe is appealing to Ratanzi and saying to the whole world, look, Mr. Trump, if you just get rid of this thing, let this Epstein files out, you'll have a better way of just coping with the world, but then you'll stop the war, because that's what Netanyahu has on you. And so I think that's a big element here. And as I said before, that's heinousness squared. Heinous genocides, forced starvation squared with abusing underage women. My God, what have we become?
Does Ben Menashe indicate the nature and the extent of the blackmail, not what Netanyahu says, but what it is in the files about Trump?
No, he doesn't go into detail, but watch the video. You could see it for yourself. The guy is tormented, and he said, look, this is going to be really bad for you, Mr. Trump, but please come clean, and then you can stop this damn thing, because they won't have this hanging over you. They won't have you over a barrel anymore. My God.
Larry, do we know if this ex-Mossad or ex-military intelligence, whatever he is, Ben Menashe, okay, do we know if he's credible?
Well, he did come out of the intelligence service, and some people find him credible, and then you get the naysayers who are within the establishment saying no. But we don't have to take his word for it. We learned this week through a document released under FOIA that Jeffrey Epstein was an FBI informant. So the FBI had signed him up as a confidential human source. And that's why when he was prosecuted for the sexual abuse of all these young girls in West Palm back in, was it 2006, 2008? That's why he got off with a hand slap. He was an FBI asset. And you know what? Knowing that now, you have to assume that maybe the FBI had him killed, because when he was arrested, I could see Epstein saying, you guys better get me out of here. I'm spilling everything, because that means the FBI was fully knowledgeable of his activities, at least from, I think he was signed up in 2005. So from 2005 to 2019, that's 14 years worth of activity that maybe even the FBI facilitated some of the abuse that Ray was describing. So, and that may even be a bigger reason why Trump is trying to keep the files and pretend that there's nothing there. Keeps insisting that it's, and I'm quoting him, bullshit. No, there are too many witnesses. There are too many women who were girls who were abused, who have provided depositions and testimony. There's too much evidence from other eyewitnesses. So he needs to come clean.
Ray, does Trump give a damn about the starving Palestinians? The answer's got to be no, he doesn't.
Well, as I say, it doesn't really matter. If he does, he feels hemmed in by what they have on him. He feels hemmed in by the Israel lobby. And he doesn't seem to realize that whereas 20 years ago, Netanyahu could brag about 80% of support from the Americans, no matter what we do, that's absurd, end quote. Right now, I doubt it's whether it's 50% support from the American people. My only regret is that this is growing too slowly, that we have thousands of Palestinians being killed or starved to death every week. We got to stop it now. And we got to stop it in whatever way we can. In this platform, maybe we can sensitize Americans to the fact that, okay, they can't just say, oh my God, isn't that awful? They got to get off their patooties and do something about it in whatever way is possible for them.
We'll end it there. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. I know this stuff is not always pleasant to discuss, but you articulate it so clearly. Thank you very much for your time. We'll look forward to seeing you both on Monday morning as usual.
I'll be there.
Welcome, Judge.
Thank you. Thank you. Have great weekends, both of
Happy
you.
weekend.
Thank you. And coming up next at 4:45 Eastern, I'm not sure where he is. I think he might still be in the south of France, Pepe Escobar. Now, take a look at this. This is next Saturday, August 16th at the Hilton Washington Dulles Airport, a special live Judging Freedom with Colonel Douglas McGregor, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, Max Blumenthal, and Anya Parampol, and yours truly. If you want to meet us, we'll all be there. If you want to be in the audience, you can see how to get tickets. But Judging Freedom live on stage at the Ron Paul Institute annual gathering at the Dulles Airport Hilton right outside of Washington, D.C. a week from tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.